Welcome back to AgentZy Intel. I am your host, Ancient. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here on the channel. Welcome to the first episode of Review Hype. Review Hype is basically, I'm going to be going back, take a look about games. I'm prioritizing looking back at the games probably like 3 months in advance, like before they were released. Let's say Paper Mario. Paper Mario comes out this week. The Origami King, I would not be doing a review hype unless if it's 3 months later after its release. So any game that's already been released 3 months later, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, 10 years later, whatever you want to call it, that's what this series is going to be about. And for the first episode of the review hype, we're going to be taking a look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, man. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild we're going to be taking a look at. Was it review hype? Was it not review hype? We shall see. For this review hype, I am going to cut it between 4 different categories. We're going to cut it with number 1 being gameplay, number 2 being story / multiplayer. Obviously, The Legend of Zelda is a story-based game, so that's going to be focused on story. Number 3 will be performance / visuals. Last of all, the last section we'll be doing is replayability, and a little personal bonus section will be the music of this game. Just a little bonus selection for you guys. But yeah, let's deep dive through if The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is review hype. Was it mandatory of it being set stone to a high amount of score? Or should we knock it down a little bit? Let's get right into it with the first section. Alright, the first section obviously being gameplay. For me, gameplay is perhaps the strongest section of Breath of the Wild. Is obviously going to be the gameplay. The amount of possibilities seem infinite, with almost every single playthrough being different to many different players. While most video games obviously do have a similar of a market / goal, at the end of almost everyone's journey, there is roughly being the same. Obviously, you could take different paths. You could take different paths here, there, accept some side quests, deny some side quests. But the amount of freedom that Breath of the Wild does give you right here is basically your own personal playthrough. Taking out enemies simply with a melee weapon while taking damage, or damaging them with a bow, probably even using the environment to your advantage, like a giant boulder. Every single interaction in this game is going to be different than your friend, than your online friend, whatever you want to call it. The gaming community, obviously the Zelda community is with this one. But it's truly a callback to the Zelda roots of being thrown into the world, literally without knowing, and figuring things out just like the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. But what is the overall score for the gameplay? Like I said, the gameplay is probably going to be the strongest suit of this. And for this review, we're going to be cutting it through a 46 out of 50. 46 out of 50. The gameplay being a strong suit of it. It's not perfect. It could be stuff can be improved. Obviously, the mishash of the dungeons have been removed. They got replaced by the shrines. The shrines are obviously good small bite-sized puzzle pieces. But if the Divine Beast had some more of those shrines taken with the particular structure of the dungeon, let's take the example with Vah Ruta, the what's it called, the Zora dungeon. There you go. I almost forgot my words. The Zora dungeon. Obviously, the whole mechanic with that is going to be the water, changing the water levels of the trunk up or down. But yeah, the overall gameplay is, I'm going to give it a good solid 46 out of 50. And now, let's get on to the next section, which is going to be story. Alright, now let's get on with the story. Perhaps the most weak point of this game, shocker, I'm probably going to get some backlash from this, but hear me out. Perhaps the most weak point of this game, besides all the other things that we'll later discuss in this little review, we are awoken 100 years ago from the tragedy of the Calamity Ganon, who has taken control over Hyrule Castle, with Zelda being the safety force barrier from setting the Calamity Ganon free. The main journey starter, or basically the fire starter of this whole journey, is to follow the guidance of the father of Zelda, which has seen as the ghost in the plateau area, is to free the Divine Beast from Ganon's control to stand a chance to defeat him and save Princess Zelda. Pretty straightforward objective, not really too much to give in through, but this story does not truly expand until we see how each Divine Beast has affected the different races of Hyrule. Obviously, each different race is going to be affected differently, like Zora with the water, Goron with the volcano, the Rito village, obviously with the divine beast in the sky, the Gerudo obviously living in the desert, having been taken over 100 years ago, which is going to be the thing, and obviously having an important connection to the champions of Hyrule / soldiers of Hyrule that Link has shared memories with before he was nearly in death's hands of a guardian 100 years ago. The memories do give plenty of lore to the past and connects these stories together, but not all of them may not be found by some people if they don't track these pictures of Link's memories. And after freeing all the divine beasts and obtaining the Master Sword, which is 13 hearts containers if I do remember correctly, it is time for the final showdown of tracking the Calamity in Hyrule Castle. The final battle of Ganon can be met 2 different ways. Obviously there could be different infinite kinds of ways, but overall the main objective can be probably split into 2 different ways. Freeing all the 4 divine beasts can let Link have a huge advantage by Calamity's Ganon's HP by 50%, or if you just don't free the divine beast, collect the Master Sword, do some stuff here and there, or heck, even if you want to dive into Hyrule Castle straight through, you are going to be met with Calamity Ganon being at 100% full HP. The second phase, and obviously the main climactic of this story, is Dark Beast Ganon, where you obtain the light arrows and the bow of light to target the weak points of the Dark Beast to finally seal him away with Zelda's help. After everything is done and Link's journey is over and a bonus cutscene of Zelda and Link having a chance to reconnect seeing the Calamity is no more and plan to rebuild Hyrule, you can only get this cutscene if you get all of the memories in the game, which is 12 to 13. I think there's 12 main memories and 13 memories. You guys can let me know in the comment section down below if I'm mistaken about that. But yes, overall, it's a decent story with many repeating itself, like the Blight Ganons. Obviously, the Blight Ganons haven't really been too much of a threat. The stories between them taking over the Divine Beast, obviously, everyone thought that each single big boss battle would be different. But obviously, the main antagonist is going to be Calamity Ganon, and not knowing the 100% connection of the past to new champions of Hyrule's, making some of this information to be known by the players themselves. Obviously, it could be a good thing, but most of the time, some players really won't get the message. You could get like 8 memories of Link. You could probably miss out some of the memories here. You won't get the secret cutscene. You do connect with the champions of the past and the new quote-unquote champions in this age, but they don't really truly expand on that. They do try to expand on that with the DLC, the Champions Ballad, but that'll be on for a future video. And now, let's get on to the section of performance and visuals, but before that, let's give it a score. The story is going to be a 29 out of 35. And without further ado, let's get on to the performance and visuals. Performance and visuals. Every single game is going to be overwhelmingly different. Obviously, some extreme graphics and visuals. Not all games really have to be like that. You can enjoy the game. Obviously, the games back in the day didn't have the greatest, highest visuals, graphics, gameplay. But overall, every single people has their own different opinions. And for me, the art style of Breath of the Wild is simple and enjoyable to see, with some minor textures loading, not the best. But overall, the performance of the game is solid, and most likely you will not occur with no issues at all, unless if you're trying to speedrun the game, break the game, which people are still breaking records to this day. But could have this game looked better on the Switch? Yes, the game could have obviously looked better for the Switch, but we do have to look back that this is a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, and it was originally going to be put on the Wii U, but obviously since after delay and after delay and after delay, they had to put Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and also on Nintendo's newest console, Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch, which was released in March 3rd, 2017. But yes, the overall score that we're going to be giving for the performance and visuals is going to be a 8 out of 10. Replayability is going to be the next section. Most games can be replayed again and again, but some may not only be played once and probably never even touched again, because there's no purpose to invest the time into it again. But with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the journeys are truly never the same, unless if you follow your footsteps 100% of the time. You don't miss no nooker crannies here on your first playthrough. You try to repeat them in the second playthrough. But obviously, every single journey is probably going to be different with Breath of the Wild. You may also want to revisit different divine beasts in different orders, take out enemies in different types of ways, or you can completely avoid them if you want. If you jump back in and restart Breath of the Wild, you know that you're going to be for another legendary adventure with Link. Like I said, you could track down the divine beasts a different way. You can do them in different orders. You can only grab 2 of them, grab 2 of the special champion abilities. But at the end of the day, the replayability of this game is almost infinite-like, and probably the most strongest section of this review and the game is going to be the replayability. Even though I did say that the gameplay is the strongest, the replayability of this game is pretty insane. And with this, I'm going to give it a score of 5 out of 5. Let's move on to the bonus section, which is going to be the music. As someone who loves video game music and listens to video game music while working or doing tasks at home, the soundtrack for this game hasn't really been memorable in my personal experience. I am not saying that the whole original soundtrack is worthless, but to me, it hasn't really stuck to me as much as the gameplay and the story that has to offer. My favorite track of this game of Breath of the Wild will have to be Cass's theme / full theme. The theme, obviously, it's super great. The accordion, I believe that's what the instrument is called, the accordion that Cass plays. That is probably hands down my favorite theme. Probably the second favorite theme that I do have of this game is going to be the original soundtrack that they used for the Breath of the Wild trailer for the Switch presentation. That soundtrack right there was pretty good. It was pretty good. But other than that, this section, I'm a little bit mixed on this one. This section is going to be a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Because I did enjoy the soundtrack of the game when I was doing it on my first playthrough, second playthrough. But it hasn't been really memorable to me. But overall, I'm going to give this a 7/10 or 8 out of 10. Probably 7.5 out of 10 if I do have to cut it in half. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for the music. And yeah, let's wrap up this review. So, what is the final score of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild review hype? If you guys have been keeping a tally chart without having obviously the bonus section of the OEST, it is going to be a 88 out of 100. An 88 out of 100 is pretty solid. Not the 10 out of 10, not the 9 out of 10, not the 9.5 out of 10. It is going to be an 88 out of 100 / 8.8 / out of 10. Let me know what you guys thought of my review hype breakdown and tell me if you agree or disagree with it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this look back of review hype, let me know with a like, dislike, and a comment down below. I will read your guys' comments. We'll have a simple discussion. If you guys like, if you guys don't agree with my opinions, let me know down below also. But yeah, this has been AgentZy Intel. I have been your host, Ancient Quattro. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, night, wherever you guys are located in time zones around the world. And yeah, peace out and have a good one, you guys.